Well, it's Sunday, and today is a big day in the NDL. So we're going to start with the top 25 breakdown. We know that the CFP bracket is going to be released later today. Interested to see who fits in where. I think we have the 12. I'd say we have 11 of the teams pretty much locked in. I'm pretty confident in the group of 5 team, Old Dominion, and then for like the top 8, 9 teams, 10 teams are good, and then maybe a question mark on the other. Let's look at what the polls say though. So, LSU going undefeated in SEC play, number 1. Colorado, number 2. Clemson, your ACC champs, number 3. Oregon, Big Ten champs, number 4. So all conference champions in the Power 4 conferences in the top 4 spots. Georgia 5, Oklahoma 6. Then we start to see something a little different. In the coaches poll, Notre Dame is above Louisville. In the media poll, Louisville's above Notre Dame. So flip-flop 7-8. Tennessee 9, UCF 10. Old Dominion in Iowa, flip-flop. Or actually, no. Old Dominion is 11 in the coaches, 14. But then you kind of have the same 4 teams, 11 through 14. Old Dominion actually got 2 first-place votes. Iowa, North Carolina, and Kansas State. And you got Iowa, Kansas State, North Carolina. Those 3 teams will be interesting because I feel like those are the arguments for that possibly last 2 at-large bid, depending on how people feel about it. We'll have to see. TCU in that conversation as well. They're sitting at 15 in both. You've got Ohio State 16, Chip 17, Tulane 18. I'm confused. I'm not sure. That's a tough one because Ohio State 17, Central Michigan. I'm not sure how Central Michigan would be behind me at at 18. Interesting. Sam Houston State at 19. Utah 19 in media, 20 in the coaches. Washington State 20 in the media. Then you've got some Florida teams, Miami, Florida. Florida's an interesting one because they sit 22. They have 4 losses. I believe they're the only 4-loss team in the coaches poll here. They're sitting at 21. I am a bit surprised by that. I like Mike. I know he had a tough schedule, but 4 losses, that's a tough one. Miami, 1 less loss, 3 losses. Texas, 1 less loss, 3 losses. San Diego State, 2 losses, conference champion. Washington State, 2 losses. So that's interesting to see Florida in there. Clearly, you can hear that in my voice. I didn't vote for Florida. We'll look at my vote, and then we'll break down some of the other things. You got Appalachian State sitting at 25, San Diego State 24, and Texas 23, and Miami 21. And then Sam Houston State not even breaking the top 25. Kind of surprised by that. Also surprised Wake Forest, 3-loss team in a power conference, also not breaking in. Interesting. There's some really good teams though that had good seasons, so it's hard. Sometimes it's really hard to leave and get everyone included. But there's a gap here. You can see 335 to 274. East Carolina dropping out the top 25. Southern Miss dropping out. They still got a lot of votes, even though there's no coach. And then here, Sam Houston missing it by 1 vote. So, the weekly, who was the closest, wasted 27 points off. I'm sitting there at 15, 37 points off. So, of the 92 that voted, close. Interesting here, we got Old Dominion 2. And some... Yeah, some of the top 25s are definitely very interesting. Very, very interesting. LSU and Colorado. So I'm just going to look at mine first. I had LSU number 1. So I had Georgia number 1, and then LSU jumped Colorado. Look, we all know I have nothing against the Colorado coach. I think he's a cool guy. I played him once. It was a really fun game. It's nothing personal about Colorado. It's just looking at the totality. LSU has such a difficult schedule. They had so many ranked opponents and they went undefeated. It's hard not to have LSU number one for me. Other people will do what they want. Understand, everyone votes how they vote. But looking at the resume, it's hard for me not to have LSU and at least Colorado at number two. Clemson sits at number three. Got a couple of votes for number one. You can see there. Clemson voting for himself number one. Can't say I'm surprised by that. Got two number one votes for Old Dominion. Not saying that I'm saying it in a bad way either. I mean, he's undefeated. And you're entitled to your votes. You've got two. This is interesting, though, that you would have Louisville with 2 losses. Granted, it's a conference championship loss, but 2 losses over Oregon, who's undefeated, over Oklahoma, who has 1 loss. No, they didn't play in the conference championship game, but I find that interesting that Louisville's so high. And some of the Old Dominions, so number one, like top 5, top 7. For me, like it was the power conferences for the most part. If you have the conversation for a tiebreaker for me comes after 2 losses. I like Tulane up here. There's no way I should be this high in anyone's bowl. I should not be cracking the top 15 in my opinion. I go to myself 19. So we look at my poll here. So at LSU, I had the 4 power conference teams, conference champions, top 4. Then Georgia suffered their first loss of the season in the SEC. And they also have a win against Oklahoma. There's your tiebreaker for why they're ahead. Notre Dame, Louisville. This one was a tough one for me. Really, I could have had Louisville over Notre Dame because Louisville did beat them. Argument can be made there. UCF, they lost in their title game. So, some could see it as me penalizing UCF for not winning it. So Notre Dame kind of moved up. But I believe I had Notre Dame higher than them in the last poll. So they had a chance to jump. They didn't really change too much for me. Tennessee, TCU with the big jump. I had Old Dominion at 12. Because then you start to get to the 2-loss teams. And I look at Iowa. Iowa has 2 losses. North Carolina has 2 losses. Kansas State has 2 losses. But Old Dominion has an extra game played, and that was a win. So instead of being 12-0 compared to 10-2, and then we kind of have a conversation, it's 13-0. But with TCU, the strength of schedule with the Massey was high, and even though they didn't win their conference or play for it, their strength of schedule was enough for me to say I'm convinced to have them 11 over Old Dominion. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm pretty sure it's not going to make a difference because the group of 5, no group of 5 team is getting an at-large bid. It's that group of 5 spot, and Old Dominion is going to get that. Ohio State, 3 losses, lost in the conference championship game. Central Michigan won theirs, a difference of 2 games here. Tougher schedule for Ohio State. That's why I have them a little bit higher. Just the 1 spot. Utah, couple losses. Central Michigan above me because we have the same record. They have a better strength of schedule, higher Massey rating, thus they should be ahead of me. San Diego State. So the difference is they're separated by a game, but San Diego State played an extra game and our conference champions. That gives them a boost. Miami and Wake Forest, both with 3 losses. Miami with a better strength of schedule, thus they're higher. Washington State for me at 24. They're Pac-12 champs. Yeah, they're only 2 teams, but they still went 10-2. And then Sam Houston, and they were 12-0. They lost their conference championship, but they finished 12-1. No other team has 1 loss, but they had the worst strength of schedule with the Massey, so that's why I had them rated so low, but I still have them in the top 25. So that said, that's mine. You see a lot of variety. There's a lot of teams that got voted. Wisconsin got voted. East Carolina, UConn getting some votes. There are definitely some tough choices to make for sure. Some have Sam Houston a lot higher. Again, they just have 1 loss. Some people don't penalize teams for losing a conference championship game. I understand it. It's an extra game. Some look at it as it doesn't hurt you. It can only help you. But the strength of schedule for me was the big difference because the strength of schedule was so low. It was really, really hard for me to have them higher for the strength of schedule so low. Then you have Georgia Southern, they have 2 losses. Middle Tennessee, they won the Conference USA. Just so many teams that you could look at. But this is what you have for the breakdown. So some definitely different ones. And we'll look at the media poll. Kind of curious on that. So this one I was the second closest. I have everything matched for the first 6. Again, the flip-flop of Notre Dame and Louisville. UCF and Tennessee. TCU I have higher than others. Jason had them also at 11. Old Dominion, I have them at 12. That's nothing too crazy. It's hard, like, I know the Old Dominion one, like, is a conversation, because to me, again, it's 2 losses. So a power team having 2 losses versus undefeated, or the difference of 2 losses. So a group of 5 team in general having 2 fewer losses than a power team, to me, kind of makes them even. But again, Old Dominion won their conference, so they had an extra game. So you look at it as a 2.5 game difference. So that half game puts them ahead. But TCU strength of schedule is high enough, again, that I said that I put them higher. North Carolina, it would be interested to see who ends up making it. Still had East Carolina in a couple, San Diego State in almost all of them. Some teams are all Florida here for Phony at 18. It's tough because Mike had such a tough schedule, but he had 4 losses. 6 Feet has it at 16. It's tough to see where you separate, right? All right. And then the Massey, the Big Daddy, what matters the most. So the argument for Colorado being number 1, they're number 1 in the Massey. See right here, 9.2 compared to 9.19. Well, 9.25 compared to basically 9.2. And then the strength of schedule. This is what made it for me, as the strength of schedule. LSU's schedule is so much tougher. Strength of schedule 6th overall. Not that Colorado had a crappy one, they're 15, but 6th overall, and they're both undefeated. For me, that was the nod, that was the difference. Pretty cool to see some things here. You kind of wonder what would have happened with Vanderbilt had the coach been able to finish. Louisville, not going to argue. I could understand the Notre Dame argument, and they did have a strength of schedule that was 3rd. 11-2, still really good. They're still going to be in the postseason anyway, so I don't think it'll do major harm. But now I'm having second thoughts about it. Looking back at it, Clemson 3rd, and the Massey. If we go start looking, Southern Miss, they didn't get to play in a conference championship game, but they're 11. But what matters in terms of group of 5, you got Old Dominion 14, 13-0. Service schedule minus 2.69, and they're going to get, I believe, that nod over Central Michigan. Central Michigan is 12-1. Central schedule is minus 5. So that's why they're a little bit higher. The interesting one here is Georgia Southern. Sure, Old Dominion helps with that, but the strength of schedule is almost at 0. They're 10-2. Let you know, had they been able to go, they had to upset Old Dominion, but had they been able to do that and play in the conference championship and win 12-1, I think that they probably would have got the group of 5 spot as well. Some really interesting teams here. Miami at 15, quietly putting together a 9-3 season. Clemson and Louisville getting all the attention, basically running the table against everyone except against each other. Both of Louisville's losses for the Clemson. Ohio State 10-3, finishes 20th in the Massey. Iowa 21. Man, Kentucky 6-6, but finishing 19th. Look at that strength of schedule. My goodness, man, that's tough. It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, because the at-large bids are going to be crazy, and I'm really curious to see what the committee is going to have to say. See, we're down here. We finished 33. Fitting number. Kind of like that. 12-1. Strength of schedule is -6. Definitely better than what it was with New Mexico. New Mexico, I want to say, were like bottom 20 strength of schedule last season. But instead of being 10-2 last year, we finished the season 12-1. So I'll take that. Mountain West champs, SCSU at 37, and then so on going down. Oh, we'll have to see what happens. We're waiting for the committee to make their decisions. We'll go from there. In terms of the coach contract, nothing really going on different from the last video. There is one final poll that needs to be done. For coach reports, can't do the last two because they were sim games, so I get credit for those automatically. And then the final after the reveal. So the reveal will be done, and then the bowl games will be announced earlier. I'm going to say early Tuesday, maybe Tuesday night, I think was what was last said. Really curious to see who will play. And then we have the NIT. We're just kind of waiting to see which teams get the at-large bids, and then we'll go from there. So I should be in bracket A. Excited to see how that plays out. It's double elimination. Definitely will make the wait for MLB The Show a little shorter because I might be able to get in a game or two. Plus the bowl game, we'll have to see. But now it's all up to the committee. I'm sure they're busy. We'll see what they decide and let the chips fall where they may.